Hello, sixth graders. This is Mrs. Seeley, and I am here with your new chapter, chapter 6, and we are doing the first lesson on exponents. And you might be asking yourself, oh, what are exponents? They sound kind of familiar, but I don't remember. So if you've ever seen a whole number or any kind of number actually with this little number sort of floating up higher to the right, then you are looking at exponents. Well, what does that mean exactly when we're talking about math? Well, what it means is an exponent is a way of showing repeated multiplication. So if you look right here, you have 2 to the power of 3. You have the base number of 2 and the exponent or the power of 3, which means 2 multiplied times itself 3 times. That exponent tells you how many times you'll be multiplying that base number times itself. And that those base numbers, when they are written in a repeated multiplication form, those are factors. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at a couple examples. We have the base number 5 to the power of 4. This means that we are multiplying that base number times itself 4 times. So 5 times 5 times 5 times 5. What's really cool is we can also do this with fractions. So this is 1/3 to the power of 3. So 1/3 times itself 3 times. And we can also do it with decimals. We can do this with all kinds of numbers. So these are just a few examples. So we look at 0.56 to the second power, or 56 hundredths to the second power. It really means 56 hundredths times 56 hundredths. So that is what exponents are representing. They are telling us how many times we are multiplying that base number times itself. So let's go ahead and take a look at these same examples, but let's go ahead and solve now for the value of this expression. So here we have our first example, 5 to the fourth power. Now, this is 5 times 5 times 5 times 5, and this is not something I can do in my head. But what I like to do is I like to chunk the math into easier, smaller steps. And then in this case, because we're dealing with exponents, I'm going to multiply. And so what that means for me is I'm going to go ahead and take those first two fives and multiply them together, because 5 times 5 is math facts that I know. I'm going to go ahead and do that with the second set of fives. And then I'm going to multiply just like I normally do. If you can hear my dog in the background, that's her just being vocal. All right, so with that, now we know that 5 to the fourth power is equal to 625. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at those fractions. Again, if I can simplify it, if I can chunk it, I will. And the way that I like to think of fractions, because I know it's numerator times numerator and denominator times denominator, I'm going to make it look a little bit simpler for me by putting all of my numerators together and all of my denominators together. Now I will chunk the denominators, because this 1 times 1 times 1, that's easy. I don't need to chunk it. So here I'm going to take my first 3 times 3, and then I'm going to keep my last one, so I get 9 times 3. This is going to lead me to my product, my answer in fractional form, and I would get 1/27, because 9 times 3 is 27, and 1 times 1 times 1 times 1 forever and ever and ever is just 1. Okay? And then the last one is decimals, and this is 56 hundredths to the second power. Now, I am very comfortable multiplying multi-digit numbers, so I don't really need to chunk this. I just need to multiply like I normally do. Maybe you break this up into tenths and ones. I'm sorry, tenths and hundredths, and multiply those together, and then put them together at the end. I don't actually do that. So what I do is I multiply like I normally would. I pretend those decimal points aren't there. But then I have to remember that in my problem, I have 4 digits to the right of the decimal point. So I must have 4 digits to the right of the decimal point in my answer. So something important for you to remember as you are multiplying decimals. So now it's your turn. And how this is going to work is you're going to pause the video. And when you pause the video, I want you to do each one of these problems on a piece of work paper on your whiteboard. Make sure you have all 4 done. And then you can come back and check your answers. I want to explain exactly what I need in these problems. So this problem right here, 7 times 7 times 7 times 7 times 7, I just want you to write it as a base number and an exponent. I'm not asking you to give me the value of this problem. 16 to the third power, I simply want you to write it as a repeated multiplication expression. You do not need to solve for the value of that exponent. These second two, you actually have to solve for the value. So this is 0.4 to the fourth power. I want you to go ahead and do the multiplication you need to do to get a product. And this is 1/7 to the third power. Again, you are going to multiply your fractions as many times as that exponent indicates and then land on an answer. So go ahead, pause the video here. Do not skip this part. This is the part where you check for your own understanding. I am not in the classroom with you, so please, this is where you need to understand if you need to go back and re-listen to the lesson, or give me a call or text me and say you don't really understand, anything that you need to do to make sure that you're getting it. So do not skip this step. Okay, pause the video and come back when you are finished. Okay, good work. I had to take us out of present mode so I can go ahead and move these colored boxes out of your way. So if we were to take this repeated multiplication problem and simply write it as a base number and an exponent, we would write 7 to the fifth power because it's 7 times itself 5 times. That is all you needed to do. For this one, I wanted you to write it as a repeated multiplication expression. And if you were to do that, it would be 16 times 16 times 16 because this exponent tells you you multiply 16 times itself 3 times. Now here, you're searching for the value of this expression. So that would be 0.4 times itself 4 times. And what I ended up doing is I took 2 of those and got 0.16, and then I multiplied 0.16 times 0.16, and I noticed 4 digits to the right of the decimal point in my problem, I definitely have to have 4 digits to the right of the decimal point in my answer. So this is what you should have gotten if you multiplied 0.4 times 0.4 times 0.4 times 0.4. Now this last one, remember when we're multiplying fractions, it's numerator times numerator, denominator times denominator. And so when you go ahead and do that, I simplified it first off, see if I can get this out of your way, by putting all of my numerators together and all of my denominators together. And it was easy to get the numerator. 1 times 1 times 1 is just 1. And this one I chunked into 7 times 7 is 49, and then 49 times 7, which allowed me to get 343. So if you struggled with this, go back and look at this lesson again, or let me know so we can have a conversation about it. If you didn't struggle, great, you can feel pretty confident to move on. And what moving on means is you are going to do some independent practice. And I need you to complete this and be ready to talk about it tomorrow in class. So you have 4 review problems. So multi-digit multiplication and decimal multiplication. And then you have fraction multiplication and long division. These are problems that we're just reviewing. We're keeping those skills nice and fresh. And then the last 2 have to do with exponents. And you are solving for the value of these exponents. So I don't want you to just write it as a repeated multiplication problem. I do actually want you to solve for the value. Now, if you'll notice in bold, you must insert a picture of your work for each problem. None of these problems are really something that I want you to do in your head. I want you to show me your work. And the reason you need to do this is because I can't help you unless I see where the confusion is. So take the time to set up your work paper, take the time to set up your whiteboard, Make sure that you write down the problems carefully. You give your numbers room so they have room to breathe. You don't get lost. They're not all squished together. And remember, you're going to take a very clear picture. And how you do that is you go up to insert. Actually, let's not do it that way. I'm going to change mine. You're going to go to this little icon that looks like a mountain, and you're going to choose your camera. And then when you have your camera, which I have my wrong camera available, that's why it's yellow. So, but you should be able to see yourself. Make sure you get an incredibly clear picture. I'm all zhuzhed up. A really good picture. And then you're going to click, and then you want to go ahead and insert it. Okay. Now, clearly, I'm not showing your work. I'm just being silly, showing you how to use the camera. You need a picture of your work, not a picture of yourself. If you want to give me a little selfie at the very end on a separate slide, by all means, go ahead and do that. All right, let me know if you have any questions, and we will talk soon.